Hi everyone, my name is Sammarco, and if you saw my first two videos, you know that yes, I was once a Trump supporter. Thankfully, I joined Earth One a few years ago and I've never looked back. However, like many others, I still have family and friends that are in the MAGA cult. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be very difficult to maintain a relationship with them when you disagree on so much. If you're like me, this video is for you. When it comes to these MAGA family and friends, you might be fine with just agreeing to disagree. For others, it might be necessary to just cut off the relationship entirely. But if you're like me and you like to engage in debates and conversations with family and friends, then I have some tips and tricks that might be helpful for you. Just to preface these tips, I'd like to say that it is so critically important to maintain respect throughout any conversation that you have. You may want to get angry, start name calling or hurling insults, but no one has ever changed minds that way. Try to keep an open mind when they're talking, and if they point out flaws in your own thinking, don't get defensive. No one is right about everything, and if you genuinely want to tackle the tough task of converting a Trump supporter, you need to be able to take criticism and feedback yourself. Listen, and if needed, explain the facts behind your rationale. Remember, we are Democrats. We come prepared with facts, not just feelings. Okay, let's get started. Tip number one is to ask them, what is it about Donald Trump that they actually like? Which policies do they approve of and why? A lot of times they won't list any policies at all, and they'll just refer to something like his demeanor or the way he tells the truth. In that case, I would ask, what does he tell the truth about? How do you know he's telling the truth? Most politicians lie. What makes Donald Trump any different? You can even point out some things that he's lied about, like how dangerous the coronavirus was, or that the 2020 election was stolen. If he was lying about those things, what makes you think he wouldn't lie about others? If the person does not think he was lying about those events, it may be time to whip out some facts. For example, when he told Bob Woodward in his book Rage that he liked to play down the coronavirus and that it was deadly stuff and more deadly than your strenuous flu.
And so what was President Xi saying yesterday?
Well, we were talking mostly about the virus, and I think he's going to have it in good shape. But it's a very tricky situation.
Indeed,
it goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. The touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. People don't realize we lose 25,000, 30,000 people a year here. Who would ever think that, right?
I know. It's
pretty amazing. And then I say, well, is that the same thing? This is more deadly. This is 5 per. This is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%. So this is deadly stuff.
But at the same time in public, he was saying that it wasn't that bad and that it was just like the flu.
View this the same as the flu. When somebody sneezes, I try and bail out as much as possible with the sneezing. I had a man come up to me a week ago. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Fine, fine." He hugs me, kisses. I said, "Are you well?" He says, "No." He said, "I have the worst fever and the worst flu." And he's hugging and kissing me. So I said, "Excuse me." I went there, I started washing my hands. So you have to do that. This is, I really think, Doctor, you want to treat this like you treat the flu, right? And, it's going to be fun.
In regards to the election in 2020, you could cite the 61 court cases that he lost or got thrown out, challenging his loss post-election. Or my favorite, just ask them what evidence do they have that the election was stolen. Okay, tip number 2 is to ask them what policies do they disagree with Joe Biden on. Try to keep the argument centered around Joe Biden and not the National Democratic Party or other politicians. This race is going to be someone versus Joe Biden. And over the past 4 years, Joe Biden has accomplished a lot. Just to name a few, the current unemployment rate is at 3.5%, which is the lowest in the past 50 years. He also established a $15 minimum wage for federal workers and contractors. And no big deal, he capped insulin at $35 per month. Yes, he's also accomplished a lot more than that, but you know your audience, so choose accomplishments that might resonate with them. If they name policies that they disagree with, like the Green New Deal or banning guns, remind them that the Green New Deal hasn't even passed and no one wants to ban all guns. Oftentimes, they may think certain initiatives or bills have already been passed solely because they've heard about them so many times on right-wing news networks and conservative talk radio.
How arrogant do you have to be to think you all of a sudden can just build all brand new cars all brand new energy, put windmills all up and down the coast, put solar panels all over, and just change the entire world economy like that. How arrogant do you have to be?
Okay, tip number 3 is to ask them the complete opposite of those first 2 questions. Can they name something they dislike about Donald Trump and like about Joe Biden? This might be a challenging question for them, but it will help break down walls. When someone is a cult leader like Donald Trump, it can be extremely difficult for their followers to criticize anything about them.
I think it's a bunch of bull. Trump ain't done that. Wrong thing Trump done is saved this country.
They're not going to let it stop. They can't stand the fact that he's running for president. And I am a Donald Trump fan.
It's probably altered, but it's just typical liberal propaganda.
None of the Republican voters CNN spoke with had read the indictment.
No, I wouldn't waste my time on a phony indictment. I don't care about the indictment. You could indict a bologna sandwich.
I think Trump is the best president we've ever had, and I'm all about getting him reelected.
If your family or friend is able to admit to something that they don't like about him, it can open the door to more honest admissions. A lot of times, these are things that they've already thought or even known deep down, but didn't have a space to say it. Be that space for them. Finally, tip number 4 is to ask about their worldview. What kind of world do they hope to create? What kind of country? What core values do they think people should have? You might find out that you actually have more in common than you thought. Oftentimes, I've said that Republicans and Democrats value a lot of the same things, they just manifest themselves completely differently. See if you can figure out where you align, because at the end of the day, the goal is to have them come join our team. I hope these tips help you guys navigate family and friends that are still part of the MAGA crowd. Personally, I wish that more people challenged me during that time, and I think if someone had truly made me question my beliefs, I don't think I would have voted for him. I always say that if you aren't challenging your loved ones on their political beliefs, then who is? They aren't going to listen to a random person who tries to debate them on the internet, but they might listen to you. So use some of these tips, use all of them, or use none of them. But the election is almost here, and it's too important not to try. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.